Okay. So, hi there. How's it going? Do you enjoy the conference? Yeah, nice. Me too. Me too. So, my name is Nikita. He's the fanciest photo of mine, I think. Yeah. I'm working as a software engineer at ASCII, where I'm building high-scale Angular applications. Also, I'm a part of a number of different Angular open source projects, such as Nebula and NGXadmin. Maybe you know some of them. And I'm so excited to be there with you guys. And today, I'm going to tell you about Angular platforms in depth, because it's Angular in-depth conference. And also tell you how to create a custom platform which will allow us to render our Angular applications inside the system's terminal using ASCII graphics. But before we start, let me tell you a super short story. So a few times a while, I've opened the main.ts file of one of my Angular applications and figured out that I have no idea on what's going on here. Yeah. I think all of you know that main.ts file is an entry point for each Angular application, which is stated into the Angular JSON file. But what's actually going on here? How do Angular bootstraps our applications? And that is what I might talk about. So today, we're going to talk about Angular as a cross-platform framework. Then we'll learn what are Angular platforms, how do they actually enable Angular to be executed across different environments, and then we'll learn how do that platforms actually bootstraps our applications. And finally, I'll tell you how to create a custom platform that will be able to render our Angular applications inside the system terminal using ASCII graphics. So applications like that one. Okay, here we go. So, have you ever thought about Angular as about a cross-platform framework which is not limited by the browser, and the only thing it relies on as JavaScript engine? So, of course, Angular can be executed inside the browser, yeah? I think it's kind of obvious. So, when we're creating a new Angular application using Angular CLI, it sets a browser environment as a default environment for our applications. Okay. Also, Angular applications can be executed on the server side. For instance, using Node.js, we can pre-render our Angular applications, just compiling them and create static HTML files, which allows us to reduce loading application time, also to make sure that our applications will be properly indexed by all search engines. Okay. Then, so we can run a part of Angular applications inside a web worker. So we are moving the most resource expensive part of our applications in the separate thread, in the web worker thread. And leaving only theme middleware in the main thread, we just reckon the messages between document and our application. Okay. Also, there are different third-party libraries that allows us to execute Angular applications in different environments. For instance, NativeScript allows us to execute Angular applications on mobile devices, utilizing all the features of native platforms. So I think it's kind of awesome. But how does it possible? And here answer is Angular platforms. So Angular platforms actually consist of two major parts. First of all, it's a platform ref. Platform ref is an Angular service which actually bootstraps our application. And the second one is a number of additional services that are used by the platform ref to bootstrap our applications. Okay. Do you remember that main.ts file I've shown you previously? I've slightly rewritten it just to facilitate understanding. And here we can notice how platform ref created as a result of platformBrowserDynamic function call. So platformBrowserDynamic function is a platform factory It's a function that can create new platforms. It's pretty simple, yeah. But if you take a look slightly deeper in the platformBrowserDynamic implementation, we'll figure out that browser platform actually extends core dynamic platform, which in its turn extends core platform. And during the inheritance, all the platforms doesn't change the behavior of the platform ref explicitly. Instead, they're providing additional sets of services for the platform ref to be used during the bootstrap phase and execution phase. Okay, and here in the middle, we have a platform core. That platform is not like others platform. It's kind of special because platform core provides us platform ref. And that's why it serves as a root platform for each platform in the Angular ecosystem. Okay. So now we know what are Angular platforms and how are they created. But how is it even possible to execute Angular applications across different environments? And it's all about abstraction. As we know, Angular applications highly rely on dependency injection system. And that's why a pretty big part of the Angular itself is built is declared as abstract classes. And when we use one of platforms, that platform just provides required implementations of that abstract classes. So let's assume here we have a number of abstract services declared by the Angular. So when we're using browser platform, it provides its own green implementations for all of these services. Meanwhile, when we are using a server platform, it provides completely different set of implementations for that abstract services. So let's have an example here. So for instance, Angular contains a DOM adapter abstract class in its sources. So that service used to communicate with the DOM in an environment-agnostic way. And when we are using browser platform, it provides its own browser DOM adapter implementation, which actually interacts directly with the DOM. But when we are using a server, we haven't got a DOM there. So server platform provides its own implementation, Domino DOM adapter, which actually utilizes Domino library, which emulates DOM on the server. Okay. Now we know what are Angular platforms and how do they enable Angular to be executed across different environments. So I think it's time to talk slightly deeper about a bootstrap process. So as I shown you previously, we're creating a platform ref by calling a platformBrowserDynamic function, and then we're just asking, hey, platform ref, could you please bootstrap our application model? So here we have a high-level overview of the application bootstrap process from the platform ref point of view. So let's discuss each point slightly deeper. So first of all, platform ref needs to compile our model. And during compilation, it do a number of different tasks. So for instance, it creates a compiler, loads all the required resources for our application, compiles our components templates, compiles modules, and just returns the model factory. So it doesn't create a model on this stage. Then, when our model, application model, compiled, we need to create a root ng zone. So we're just creating a new instance of the ngZone class and then running all the entire code of our application inside that root zone. And only after that, we can create a model from the model factory. It's required to wrap that call in the root zone just because some models may require services eagerly, and we need to make sure that all our code is wrapped in the zones. Yeah? Okay. when our model compiled and created and we have a root and JSON set it up, the same things we need to do is to set up an error handler. So in that case, we are just retrieving an error handler instance from the injector. Then we are subscribing on the errors from the zone and calling an error handler instance as a reaction on that error events. But the one thing we need to notice here is that all this error handling logic is wrapped in the zone route outside Angular function, which means that error handling logic will never trigger any change detection runs in our applications. Okay. After that, we just need to run application initializers. So in Angular, application initializers are functions that has to be executed right before we bootstrap our application. So for instance, here you can notice a setup webworker initializer, which actually makes webworker DOM adapter default for our application. Okay. So when we have all our models compiled, root and JSON set it up, we have an error handler and already ran all our application initializers, it's a time to actually render our application. So in this stage, we're trying to retrieve an application ref from the injector and then just delegate all the rest bootstrap components logic to the application ref. So do you remember that application model declaration? When we're using an ng model decorator and passing our app component as to the bootstrap property. So application ref just retrieves all the components which are mentioned in the bootstrap property, then iterates through them, and then resolves component factories, and then actually creates all the components. I think that code has to be familiar for those of you who at least once created dynamic components in Angular. Yeah? So, okay. We've learned what are Angular platforms, how do they enable Angular to be executed across different environments, and now we know what is bootstrap process. So just let me tell you about terminal platform and what we need to do to create it. So as I stated previously, Angular highly relies on dependency injection system. So to be able to run our applications inside the system terminal, we just need to re-implement a number of abstract services. But a pretty big part of that required services will be boilerplate code which will be copied from other platforms, or they're super straightforward, so I decided to stop only on the core of the terminal platform, on the renderer. So renderer is an abstract service which is used by Angular to render our applications in an environment-agnostic way. So it is used by bootstrap component step while rendering components, also then in the execution phase when we are updating our application state and re-rendering something. So it has the following interface, so it can create and remove elements, assign attributes and classes, add event listeners, and so on. But to be able to render our applications using ASCII graphics, we need to find a way to do that. So I decided to stop with the library. So I just found a library. It's an abstract ASCII renderer library, just because I'm not going to advertise any library here. And that library just has pretty similar interface to the renderer. And the only thing we need to do here is to find a way to map the interface of the ASCII renderer to the renderer interface. Just like create an adapter. And we will get something like that. And that's it. Just trust me, we just done maybe 80% of job here. So it's really super easy. Okay. But only thing I'm going to notice here is that if we are executing Angular applications outside the browser, we should remember that we can't touch DOM, never, because we haven't got a DOM. And it's pretty important point. Okay. When we're done with all our services, the only thing we need to do here is just wrap them in the custom platform, in the terminal platform. And that's it. So, it's a demo time. Where's my demos? Okay. Here's my demo application. Here I have an application component with a number of examples. And I'm using the platform platformBrowserDynamic, which also exists here. So, first of all, let's try something simple. Let's see as a plain text component. So I'm going to ask platform terminal, who is awesome here. So let me start it. Just compiling. And so guys, you are the awesome here. So yeah, here we have text which is rendered inside the terminal, and here I have exactly the same text in the template of my example. Okay, but you know, I think text is kind of boring, so let's draw something more interesting. Here I have two boxes, box in the box. So boxes here are like divs in the browser. So what do you think if we execute that one? Just compiling. And yeah, here we have a box centered in the screen. But terminal platform said that boxes are boring. Okay, boxes are boring. Then, what do you think if we make that box draggable? Oh. Okay, and here we have a draggable box. Have you ever seen it before? Draggable elements inside the system terminal? No? Okay, now you did. But you know, I think boxes are kind of boring too. So, what do you think if we create something more impressive? For instance, full-featured dashboards with lines, tables, and even a map inside the system terminal. Just to notice, here we have a table, and I can even interact with it with my keyboard and navigate through the table. And also, as you can notice, here we have a bunch of dynamic data, and it's pretty beautiful, you know, I think.
Launch rockets.
Yeah, we can launch rockets like NASA. Okay. So, where's my slides here? But why? I think it's an important point here, yeah. So, you know, I think nowadays there is a pretty big amount of different CLI applications, and plenty of them are written using JavaScript. Then why not to help ourselves? Why not to start writing our CLI applications using Angular? Because it will be much more easier. Because we can utilize all the features that are provided by the Angular. We can use change detection, HTTP clients, use components, use RxJS, and use all the features provided by the Angular. And I think it's kind of awesome, yeah? So here's again my fancy photo. And if you have any questions, I'll be at the speaker room there. And here's my Twitter handle. If you have any questions, just DM me. And if you are interested, here's a GitHub repository with all the examples. You can check them out, just clone the repository and play.
Awesome.
So thank you guys. So let me just take a photo with you. I just want to have a fancy selfie. Hey, just tell me something about cheese. Okay, thank you guys, you are awesome.